In this video, I want to look a little at how you spot errors with prepositional phrases and what you would have to do to correct that kind of error. So let's begin with a sentence that has a couple of prepositional phrases in it, and there's no problem. Like a fool, Szilard invests only in stocks. So the only problem there is maybe with the investment strategy. It's unbalanced, but the grammar is perfect. So we have in stocks here, that's a prepositional phrase, and it's functioning as an adverb. It's answering the question, how does Szilard invest? In stocks, that's how. It's adverbial, and it's modifying invests. And so is like a fool. Now when a prepositional phrase is standing outside of the main clause here is Szilard invests only in stocks. That's the backbone of the sentence. And when you have a prepositional phrase, say beginning a sentence, it's always functioning adverbially. And it's always, therefore, answering a question that is going to deal with the main verb. So how does he invest? He invests like a fool. So like a fool modifies invests. You get a little mixed up and think that it's modifying Szilard, but it isn't. It's functioning adverbially. It's saying, how does he invest? Like a fool. That's how. So here's a sentence that works just fine. Like a fool, Szilard invests only in stocks. Now this next sentence, I'll get out of the way here. Like anyone in distress, doubts plague the jobless. Now, it's pretty clear what's in the author's mind here. That is that the people, anyone in distress, that's like the jobless. So the jobless are like anyone in distress. That's what is in the author's mind there, that the jobless are like anyone in distress. And so the author has written, like anyone in distress, doubts plague the jobless. But the problem here is that, like anyone in distress, like a fool up above, is functioning adverbially, and it's modifying the verb plague. So what is really being said by this sentence is not what is intended. This prepositional phrase here, like anyone in distress, it is asking the question, or it is answering the question, how do doubts plague the jobless? Doubts plague the jobless like anyone in distress. That's how doubts plague the jobless. How do they plague them? Like anyone in distress. That's how. Well, of course, that's not what is meant. The doubts are not plaguing the jobless as anyone in distress is plaguing the jobless. That's not what is being said here. So what you'd have to do, so if you were marking this in a paper, I would underline this prepositional phrase and say, that there's an error in modification, that this prepositional phrase isn't modifying what it's supposed to. So if you were to fix this, you'd have to do something like this. If you were going to begin the same way, like anyone in distress, the jobless are plagued by doubts. That would work, because now, how are the jobless plagued by doubts? They're plagued like anyone in distress. That's how. And that would work just fine. Let's look at a couple different kinds of other problems. So that's one problem here that's very common, is that this prepositional phrase, like anyone in distress, isn't modifying what it's supposed to modify. And the sentence actually doesn't make good sense. Here's another kind of problem that comes up with prepositional phrases. I heard Zoltan give a speech for the first time. Well, the prepositional phrase here is for the first time. And again, it has to be functioning adverbially. Remember, if a prepositional phrase is functioning like an adjective, it will immediately follow the noun it's modifying. And the speech, it's not functioning adjectively. It's not saying what kind of speech. A speech for the first time, that's what kind of speech. That doesn't make any sense at all. So it is certainly functioning adverbially, and the sentence may sound okay because unlike this one, like anyone distressed, doubts, like the jobless, there's no strange meanings here. The problem is that there are two meanings that are equally likely to come out of this sentence, and you can't tell which meaning is intended. So I heard Zoltan give a speech for the first time. There is no way for us to tell whether for the first time is supposed to modify give or whether it's supposed to modify heard. That is, there's no way to say whether this speaker means Zoltan has been giving speeches, for years or months or whatever, and I only just heard him for the first time. Or whether the speaker is saying that this was Zoltan's first speech, and I heard him the time that he first gave a speech, the time that he gave a speech for the first time. So you can't tell whether this is Zoltan's maiden speech or whether Zoltan is an experienced speaker that is only now being heard by our eye for the first time. So there's no nonsensical modification as there was in this sentence up here, but there's ambiguity. So you would have to recast the sentence to get rid of that ambiguity. You can't just move things around. So here is one last example of a problem that could come up using prepositional phrases. During the chapter, civil rights are analyzed in detail. Now, the problem here is just that you can't use during, which is a preposition. You just can't use it idiomatically in this sentence. During the blank, the thing that follows has got to be something that is an event that unfolds in time. During the storm, during the early part of the year, during the discussion. That is some kind of event that unfolds temporally. But a chapter is not such an event, so you can't say during the chapter. So there's not a problem with ambiguity. There's not a problem with nonsensical modification. It's just the question of here. The wrong preposition has been used. This is not an idiomatic use of the preposition during. I mean, you could fix this with just substituting in the chapter. Civil rights are analyzed in detail, and that would be fine. So here we've seen three distinct kinds of problems that can come up with prepositions and how to understand what's wrong with them and how to articulate how the sentences could be made better and must be corrected.